final question, what is causing that rotation on the plume that can sometimes turn into a full-on firenado?
Yeah, it's a big question with a long answer. A lot of different things can cause it, and I think we're still trying to understand all the different complexities that go into it. There are a couple of different flavors, I would say. We know now from looking at some fires like the Loyalton fire and the Creek fire, the Bear fire, all these fires in 2020, a very active fire season. One of the fundamental things that's happening in wildfires is that the airflow is coming in, and when we get a strong updraft coming off of the fire, it forces the airflow to split around the updraft, similar to the way a rock sticking out of a river forces the water to split around it. And then on the back side of that, we'll get two eddies, basically, and they're rotating in different directions. So air is coming in, splitting around the updraft, and then folding back in. So if you're in a river, you would tuck your kayak into that eddy if you wanted to break from paddling, and you could probably just sit there because the air is actually, or the water in that case, is actually going back the other way. It's not a perfect analogy for a fire because the fire is also drawing air in a way that a rock isn't doing. And so these flows are actually enhanced in wildfires. What seems to happen is that when we have certain wind shear in the environment or certain advancement of the fire front, one or the other of these eddies can get kind of favored in the environment and get fire within it. And when that happens, it also stretches the column out vertically. And so we have a source of rotation near the surface, and then something akin to what a figure skater does. So we have some weak rotation there in the environment, similar to maybe a figure skater. They start a spin with their arms out, and when they pull their arms in, to conserve the amount of rotation, the radius gets smaller, but the rotation gets stronger. In the case of a fire, the analogy is actually as the plume goes vertical and gets deeper, that's the same thing as a figure skater pulling their arms in. It stretches the column out vertically, collapses that rotation, and you get stronger rotation. So what's causing that? Well, two things. One, increased fire activity, and that's where we get like a feedback circle. We get stronger updrafts. But then the other thing can be the triggering of the pyro-CB. When we trigger the pyro-CB, we get a sudden vertical growth of the plume. It might double in height in 10, 15 minutes. And as it's doing that, it's pulling on the air beneath it. And so if we have these sort of flow dynamics at the surface that have some rotation in them, you can go from weak broad rotation to strong concentrated rotation in a very short period of time. And that seems to be a common signature in the fires that we've looked at that produce these tornado strength vortices, real fire tornadoes. That said, I don't think it's the only way that fire tornadoes form. There are a lot of other complexities, the interaction of different plume elements that can start to rotate, intertwined, interactions with topography that create eddies that get stretched out, and then interactions with other airflow boundaries, like a front moving across or an outflow, drainage out of a canyon. There's all sorts of things that can lead to it, but I do think this flow splitting, rotation, and then favoring one or the other is a fairly common signature right now for the really impressive events. So a lot to learn, though, still about what's going on in that environment.